Let me ask you something that might sting a little. You wake up in the morning, pick up your phone, scroll through the same feeds, rush to work, sit in traffic, come home, watch some TV and fall asleep, only to wake up and do it all again. Somewhere in between you laugh, you complain, you dream, and you convince yourself, this is freedom. But is it really? Because if you pause for just a moment and look closer, you'll see something terrifying. Most of us aren't living freely at all. We're following scripts that were handed to us long before we ever had the chance to write our own. Scripts written by society, by culture, by family, by fear. And the scariest part? We don't even notice the invisible chains wrapped around our minds. Think about it. How many choices you make every day are truly yours? The clothes you wear, the career you chase, the opinions. You hold even the dreams you're chasing. Are they born from you or from the world telling you who you should be? We like to believe we're free because no one is physically holding us down. But mental chains are far stronger than iron ones. They don't need guards, prisons, or locked doors. They live inside us, silently guiding our every step, while we keep insisting, I'm free. So here's the real question. Are you living life on your own terms? Or are you unknowingly trapped in a prison without walls? Stay with me, because in this video, we'll uncover the hidden chains of the mind that keep most people from ever tasting true freedom. And maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to see the bars around you dissolve. We live in a world that constantly tells us we are free. Free to choose, free to speak, free to live however we want. And on the surface, it looks true. You can order whatever food you want tonight. You can pick your clothes, your phone, even your career path. You can travel, post on social media, and call that freedom. But let's look a little closer, because the truth is, most of those choices are not as free as they seem. Take a simple example. Imagine a bird inside a golden cage. The door is wide open. The bird can leave any time it wants, but it doesn't. Why? Because the cage is comfortable. There's food, there's safety, there's routine. To the bird, this cage feels like freedom, until it realizes one day that it has forgotten how to fly. Isn't that what happens to most of us? We believe we're free because no one is physically forcing us to obey. But the reality is our minds have been shaped, subtly, quietly, by forces we rarely question. Media tells us what's normal. Society tells us what's successful. Culture tells us what's acceptable. And without even noticing, we start playing roles in someone else's story. Think about it. How many times have you wanted something not because you truly wanted it, but because the world around you told you that you should? The car, the house, the title, the image. You chase it, you struggle for it, you sacrifice for it, and when you finally get it, you're still not free. You're just in another, slightly shinier cage. This is the illusion of freedom. The belief that because we have options, we must be free. But here's the trap. Options don't equal freedom. True freedom is not about the number of doors you can walk through. It's about whether you chose those doors or whether someone else chose them for you. Let's make it even more personal. Picture yourself scrolling endlessly on your phone. You think you're choosing what to watch. But in reality, algorithms are choosing for you. Every choice is carefully designed to keep you hooked. You believe you're in control, but really, the system is controlling you. And isn't that the very definition of being unfree? And it doesn't stop there. Look at careers. Society tells you, study hard, get a degree, land a stable job, climb the ladder. Sounds like freedom, right? You can choose any career. But how many of those choices are truly yours? How many are filtered through family pressure, economic need, or the image you want others to see? And once you're in, the system locks you down with mortgages, bills, and debt. Suddenly, leaving feels impossible. Just like the bird in the cage, you have wings, but you've forgotten how to use them. Here's the hardest truth. Most people never realize they are trapped. They mistake comfort for freedom. They confuse survival for living. And because the walls of the cage are invisible, they never even think to escape. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you made a choice that wasn't influenced by fear, pressure, or expectation? When was the last time you listened only to that quiet voice inside you, and not the noise of the world? If your answer is, I can't remember, then maybe you're starting to see the illusion for what it is. True freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about knowing who you are when the world is no longer whispering instructions in your ear. And the reason most people will never be free is simple. They never stop to ask if the life they're living is really their own. So, the first hidden chain of the mind is this: the illusion of freedom. We think we're free, but most of us are only walking in circles inside a cage we've convinced ourselves is the whole world. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. If the first chain is the illusion of freedom, then the second is far more personal, far more suffocating. Fear. Fear is the invisible rope that ties more people down than any government, any prison, any law. And the most painful part? We carry it willingly. Think about how many decisions in your life were shaped not by desire, but by fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of losing what you have, fear of not being enough. It's everywhere. How many people stay in jobs they hate day after day because they fear the unknown if they quit? How many people stay in relationships that drain them because they fear being alone? How many dreams are buried in the graveyard of fear before they ever had a chance to breathe? Maybe you felt it yourself, that tight grip in your chest when you think about taking a risk, that whisper in your head that says, what if I fail? What if people laugh? What if I lose everything? And so, you stay still, you stay safe. But safe is just another word for stuck. Let me share a story. There was once a man who wanted to become a writer. His heart ached for it. Every night he dreamed of telling stories, of putting his soul on paper. But by day he worked in an office, typing numbers he didn't care about. Year after year he told himself he wasn't ready. He needed more time, more money, more confidence. But beneath all of those excuses was one truth. He was afraid. Afraid he wasn't good enough. Afraid people would reject him. Afraid he would fail. Do you know what happened? He never wrote that book. He lived his life in quiet frustration, chained not by his lack of talent, but by fear. And isn't that the story of millions of people? Fear convinces us that freedom is too dangerous, that it's safer to accept the life handed to us than to risk chasing the one we truly want. And so, fear becomes the prison guard of the mind. It doesn't need weapons, it doesn't need locks, it only needs whispers. Don't try, don't risk, don't dream. But here's the paradox. Fear is often a lie. The things we fear rarely destroy us. In fact, the real destruction comes from avoiding them. Because when you let fear dictate your life, you trade your potential for comfort. And that comfort becomes a cage. Ask yourself, how many things you once feared have already happened, and yet you survived? You were terrified of rejection, but when it came, you grew stronger. You feared failure, but failure taught you lessons no success ever could. You feared loss, but loss forced you to discover resilience. Freedom doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means acting despite it. Courage is not, I don't feel afraid. Courage is, I feel the fear and I move anyway. But most people never reach that point. They bow to fear. They let it rule their choices, their relationships, their dreams, and in doing so, they never break the chains. Imagine for a moment, what would your life look like if fear had no power over you? If the fear of failure didn't stop you, if the fear of judgment didn't silence you, if the fear of the unknown didn't hold you back, would you be the same person you are today? Or would you finally live as the person you were meant to be? The truth is, most people will never know. Because fear is a comfortable chain. It's easier to stay locked up than to fight your way out. And so, they call their fear wisdom. They call their hesitation responsibility. But deep down, it's the same. Fear keeping them small. So the second hidden chain of the mind is this. Fear. Not the kind that protects you from danger, but the kind that robs you of life. The kind that whispers lies until you believe them. And if you don't break this chain, you'll never be free. If fear is the chain that holds us back, then desire, and the endless comparison it breeds, is the chain that pulls us forward, but never lets us arrive. We live in a world built to keep us hungry. Hungry for more money, more attention, more validation, more likes, more recognition. Everywhere we look, there's a silent message whispering, "You are not enough yet. You need more." And so we chase. We run after careers, after relationships, after possessions, after status symbols, believing that once we get them, then we'll finally be free. But here's the cruel trick. The finish line keeps moving. You get the car you wanted, but now you want the bigger one. You get the house, but now you need it to be in a better neighborhood. You get the job, but now you want the title. You get the recognition, but now you need more followers, more applause, more proof that you matter. Desire itself is not the enemy. Desire can be beautiful. It inspires us, motivates us, gives us vision. But when desire turns into obsession, when it becomes comparison, that's when it transforms into a prison. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who grew up with very little. She dreamed of success, not for greed, but for security. She worked hard, built her career, and soon had everything she once prayed for. A stable income, a beautiful home, and respect from her peers. By all accounts, she had made it. But something strange happened. She couldn't enjoy it, because when she looked around, there was always someone with more. A friend with a bigger house, a colleague with a higher salary, a neighbor with more influence. Instead of feeling free, she felt trapped in a cycle of endless comparison. No matter what she achieved, she couldn't silence the thought, why don't I have what they have? And isn't that what most of us experience? Social media has made this chain even tighter. You scroll through a feed, and in minutes, you're comparing your life to hundreds of others. Their vacations, their perfect families, their achievements, and suddenly, your own life feels small. Comparison is the thief of joy, but more dangerously, it's the thief of freedom. Because as long as your worth depends on what someone else has, you will never feel free. Here's the irony. Even the people you compare yourself to are also comparing themselves to others. It's an endless race where no one wins. Think about it. How much of your life has been shaped by desire that wasn't even yours? How many goals did you pursue just because society said they mattered? How many times have you measured your worth against someone else's ruler? This is the prison of desire and comparison. It keeps you running endlessly, chasing shadows. It convinces you that freedom is always out there, in the next purchase, the next milestone, the next achievement. But when you arrive, it's never enough. True freedom begins when you stop running. When you realize that your value is not determined by the number in your bank account, the title on your business card, or the likes on your posts. It's not determined by what your neighbor drives or where your friend vacations. True freedom begins when you choose your own desires instead of swallowing the ones the world feeds you. Ask yourself, what do I truly want? If no one was watching, if no one was comparing, if there was no applause, no judgment, what would I choose for myself, purely for the joy of living it? That question alone can break chains. Because the prison of desire is not really about wanting things, it's about believing that your worth depends on them, and as long as you believe that, you will forever be a prisoner. But the moment you see it for what it is, the walls begin to crack. You realize you don't need to keep up. You don't need to compare. You don't need to chase shadows. You can live your life on your own terms, even if it looks smaller from the outside. Because what good is a big life that doesn't feel like yours? Most people will never escape this prison. They will spend their lives running on the treadmill of desire, competing in a race no one can ever win. But you, if you can see it, you have a choice, and that choice is where freedom begins. We've talked about fear, we've talked about desire, and how they build invisible prisons around the human mind. But there's another chain, subtler, quieter, that keeps most people locked in place without even realizing it. And that's the trap of comfort and routine. Let's be honest. We all love comfort. A warm bed, a safe home, a steady paycheck, predictable days. Comfort feels good. Routine feels safe. But here's the hidden danger. Comfort, when left unchallenged, becomes captivity. Imagine a bird in a golden cage. The bird is well fed, protected from danger, and given everything it needs. From the outside, it looks like the bird is living a great life. But what has the bird lost? Its wings, its ability to fly, its freedom to explore the sky. That's what comfort does to us. It gives us safety, but it takes away our wings. Think about your own life. How much of your day looks exactly the same as yesterday? You wake up, check your phone, go to work or school, return home, scroll, eat, sleep, and then repeat. Weeks blur into months. Months blur into years, and before you know it, you look back and wonder, where did my life go? Routine isn't evil, it keeps society functioning. But when routine becomes the default, when you no longer question it, when you stop asking if this is really the life you want, that's when it becomes a trap. Let me tell you about a man named Daniel. Daniel had a stable job, a nice apartment, and a decent salary. Nothing spectacular, but nothing terrible either. He lived in routine. He worked, came home, watched TV, went to bed, and repeated. He often told himself he was fine, but deep down, he wasn't fine. He felt empty. He had dreams once, of traveling, of writing, of starting his own project, but he told himself, I'll get to it someday. Someday, when things calm down, someday when I'm ready, someday when I feel brave enough. But here's the thing about someday, it never comes. Years passed. Daniel's routine stayed the same. The comfort of his steady job kept him from risk, but also kept him from growth. He was safe, but he was never free. And this is what happens to most people. We mistake comfort for happiness. We think routine is security, but security can become a prison if it keeps you from truly living. Have you ever noticed how children crave adventure? They're curious. They want to touch, explore, run, and experience. But as we grow older, society trains us to trade curiosity for routine. Instead of asking, why not, we start saying, better not. But here's the paradox. Everything you want in life, growth, freedom, fulfillment, lives outside your comfort zone. Yet most people will never step outside because the walls of comfort feel safer than the unknown. Ask yourself, how many dreams have you postponed because it felt easier to stay comfortable? How many times have you settled for good enough because it felt less risky than chasing great? How many parts of your soul have you silenced just to keep your life predictable? The truth is, freedom doesn't come wrapped in safety. Freedom comes with risk, uncertainty, even discomfort. It demands courage. It asks you to step into the unknown. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's uncertain. But think about this. Is the cage really safer than the sky? Because while the cage may protect you from storms, it also keeps you from flying. Here's a question to sit with. Are you living, or are you just existing? Existing means you're surviving, doing what's expected, repeating the same days. Living means you're awake, aware, and willing to take risks for what matters to you. Most people will choose existing. They'll cling to their routines, their comforts, their predictability, never realizing that in doing so they've traded freedom for safety. But the few who dare to step out, the ones who risk failure, who embrace uncertainty, who are willing to break routine, they discover something extraordinary. They discover that life is not meant to be lived on repeat. It's meant to be explored, expanded, and experienced fully. Freedom isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about embracing it, because discomfort is the path to growth, and growth is the doorway to freedom. So the next time you feel the pull of comfort, ask yourself, is this comfort serving me, or is it slowly imprisoning me? Because the chains of routine are often the hardest to see and the hardest to break. We've talked about the prisons of fear, desire, and comfort. We've seen how invisible chains wrap around our minds and quietly control our lives. But now comes the most important question of all. How do we break free? Because here's the truth. Most people won't. Most people will spend their entire lives inside these invisible prisons, believing that this is just how life is meant to be. But you're here, listening, which means you've already taken the first step. Awareness. You can't break chains you cannot see, and now you see them. But awareness alone is not enough. Freedom is not given. Freedom is chosen. Every day, in small, uncomfortable, often terrifying choices. So how do we begin? First, we have to face fear head-on. Fear whispers, "What if you fail? What if they laugh? What if you lose everything?" But here's something to remember. Fear is a liar. Most of the disasters it predicts never happen. And even when they do, you're stronger than you think. The secret is not to wait for fear to disappear. It never will. The secret is to act with fear, to move forward even as your heart pounds. That is where courage is born. Second, we must question our desires. Ask yourself, do I want this because it truly matters to me, or because I've been taught to want it? Most of the goals we chase are borrowed dreams, handed to us by parents, society, advertisements. Real freedom comes when you strip all of that away and discover what your soul truly longs for. That might be simple, quiet, even invisible to others, but if it's yours, it's worth more than any comparison. Third, we have to disrupt our routines. Comfort may feel safe, but it's the enemy of growth. The way out is not to burn your life down overnight, but to start making small shifts. Try something new. Take a risk, however small. Break one pattern. Each step outside your comfort zone stretches your wings a little further until one day you're flying again. And finally, perhaps the hardest part, we must redefine what freedom actually means. Because freedom is not about doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's not freedom, that's chaos. Real freedom is the ability to live in alignment with your truth. To not be controlled by fear. To not be enslaved by endless desire. To not be numbed by comfort. To live awake, aware, intentional. Think about it. A person who spends all their time chasing more money isn't free. They're a prisoner of greed. A person who clings to safety and never risks isn't free. They're a prisoner of fear. A person who can't stop comparing themselves isn't free. They're a prisoner of other people's opinions. But a person who can walk away from what doesn't serve them, who can say no to the world's noise and yes to their own truth, that person is free, no matter where they are. Let me share a small story. There was once a monk who lived high in the mountains. A traveler climbed up to meet him and asked, "Master, what does it mean to be free?" The monk smiled, poured 2 cups of tea and said, "Freedom is not about having nothing around you. It is about having nothing within you that controls you. That's it. True freedom is inner freedom, and the chains we've talked about, fear, desire, comfort, they don't live outside. They live inside, which means the key has been in your hands all along. So here's my question to you. Will you use it? Will you take the risk to step beyond fear? Will you stop running after shadows and choose what truly matters to you? Will you break your routines and live awake instead of on autopilot? Because life is short, and most people will spend it locked in cages they never try to escape. But you have a choice. Right now, the chains may be heavy, yes, the path may be uncertain, but what waits on the other side is worth it. Not just success, not just happiness, but freedom, the kind of freedom that makes every breath feel alive, every moment feel real. And maybe, just maybe, that's what life was always meant to be. So ask yourself, are you ready to break the chains? Because the door has always been open.